Hi, I'm Jeremy, the Zoo Nerd, coming to you live from my backyard in beautiful Los Angeles, California. How's everyone doing today? I hope you're well, happy, healthy, and having some fun. Today in Critter Chat, we're going to talk about another Monkey Monday species, or a group of species. Today we're going to talk about langurs. If you saw the photos I posted earlier on Facebook and Instagram, langurs are medium-sized monkeys. They are found throughout Asia, typically from like Pakistan and India on the western side, all the way to Indonesia and Malaysia on the eastern side, or on the eastern side, and kind of from the coast on the south up to about the Himalayas, kind of mid-continent. A little bit north of the Himalayas into China in some species. But they are a very interesting group of monkeys. They are largely folivores. Now that's a word I don't think I've used yet on Critter Chat. Folivores means that their primary diet, or what they mostly eat, is leaves. And we have talked about some other animals that are folivores. This is just the first time I'm actually using that word. They are actually closely related to another type of monkey we talked about a couple weeks ago, called a colobus monkey. Colobus monkeys live in Africa, langur monkeys live in Asia, but they're all part of the big family of monkeys that are fairly similar in their digestive systems and what they eat. So with the langurs, it's usually about 50% up to as much as like 80% of their diet is leaves. Through that, they'll eat up to about 100 different species of plants, but it's usually the leaves they're after. They will occasionally eat the roots, new growth shoots, flowers, seeds, nuts, fruit, and on occasion, some of the species will eat some insects, but their primary food is the leaves. With langurs, they're typically found about half the time in trees and about half the time on the ground. That's also going to vary a bit species to species and what their home range habitat looks like. In some areas, it's a little more dry forest and the trees are further apart and they have to be down on the ground a little more to travel between trees or groups of trees. In some areas, they live in very dense forest and they hardly ever come to the ground because there's not as much need to travel from one group of trees to another. In general, they all kind of have a very similar body type. They're kind of long and skinny, slender bodies with very long legs, very long arms, very long tails, and kind of little pot bellies. That's again because they eat so many leaves. They have to have a very complex digestive system, including a multi-chambered stomach that contains chambers full of bacteria that help break down the leaves so they can get as much nutrition as possible. Because of their complex diet of a lot of leaves, they also are not that active throughout the entire day. They typically wake up, eat a big breakfast, and then rest for a couple of hours, and then wake up and eat again, and then rest for a few hours, and then eat again, and then go find a spot to sleep for the night. So they are a very interesting group of monkeys, but because of their heavy leaf diet, it makes them maybe not the most active of species. That being said, they are pretty well known by the local people. In some of the areas, they live right in the cities, sometimes really around people. Particularly the species that live in India are quite accustomed to living close by people. And in some species in India, they are actually highly regarded, respected, and sometimes even a little bit almost worshipped. There's one species called the Hanuman langur that is named after an Indian god, and they are revered to be the servants of that god who are here on earth to kind of help mediate between the god and the people. And so they kind of hang out a lot at temples and religious sites, and people often bring food or gifts to the monkeys to kind of show their respect for their monkey-like god. So it can be very highly respected. In other areas with other species in other countries, Langurs and people have a really tough relationship, usually with the monkeys not doing so well. So across the range, there are 45 different species of langurs. I'm only familiar with a couple of them, but in learning about them, they shared a lot of similar traits in how they live their day-to-day life, and also the threats they face from people. Also, they have a very similar social structure across most of their range. They typically live in groups with one dominant male, a handful of adult females, their offspring, and then like some juveniles that are still hanging around. And then off to the side of that's a bachelor group of other males that are maybe related, maybe not, kind of waiting to see if they can make it in the real world and someday be a dominant male as well. Now there is one species that they actually have monogamous pair bonding, but they are pretty isolated. They live in an island in Indonesia, and it's one male, one female. They are happy together and they stay together pretty much their whole life. So they're kind of the outlier as far as langurs go. One thing that I find super fascinating about langurs, and to my knowledge, they do this better than any other primate species that I'm aware of, is something called alloparenting. And what this is, the pictures I posted earlier today, the third picture is a bright orange little monkey face. That's a baby Francois langur. In most langur species, the babies are born with brightly colored, very different colored hair than the adults. So sometimes it's bright, like in the Francois langur, with that bright orange, and the adults are all black with white around their faces. Sometimes if the adults are kind of tan or lighter color, the babies are black. But what that does is it helps everyone in the troop know where the baby is at all times. And with langur monkeys, they will all help raise the baby. For the first couple of weeks, it stays just with its mom, but as the baby gets a little bit older, all the aunties and some of the older sisters, and sometimes even the dad, helps take care of the baby. Particularly as the baby's old enough that it's kind of walking around on its own and trying to find food sources on its own. If there's danger around, that baby can run to any adult in the troop, and that adult will protect it during the time of danger. So they're super, super great about communally raising a baby. The saying of it takes a village to raise a child is very true in langur society. They all pitch in to help out. With langurs, their gestation period is about 180 up to about 220 days, depending on the species. So that's between 6 and 7 months. Pretty long time, but as a primate, as a monkey, that is typical across the board with most monkeys. It's usually a lengthier time than an animal of similar size, say like a hoofstock or maybe a carnivore. Carnivores have really short gestation periods, actually. After about 6 weeks old, it starts to find food on its own, but the mom will still nurse it until it's at least 8 months old, sometimes till it's a year old. They're usually independent by age 2, but around that like 4 or 5 month, they start hanging around others their age more and hanging around their mom less, kind of only running back to their mom when they're hungry. Or if they're scared, if there's danger around. In the wild, langurs can live into their 20s in a captive setting like a zoo. They can live into their 30s. Again, medical care in a zoo setting, not having to worry about competition for food or finding their own food, and also not running away from predators or other threats, limits some of the dangers in their life, and in a zoo setting they live longer. They also get that medical care, which really helps out as they get older with anything like arthritis or blindness, tooth loss, tooth decay, any of those things that can cause problems in older animals. Out in their home range, they have a lot of animals that they would have to worry about as potential predators. Big predators like leopards, tigers, dholes, which is a type of wild dog in Asia, wolves, jackals, large snakes, things like pythons, And then, of course, there's birds of prey that will try to eat them as well. So they have to watch out for a lot of predators. In some areas, they have learned the alarm calls of other species, so sometimes other monkeys. Particularly for some of the populations in India, they know the alarm calls of the deer that live by, and the monkeys and the deer will help let each other know if there's a tiger in the area. Also peacocks in that same area in India. So all of those species will kind of sound the alarm if they see something, and all the species kind of benefit to keep eyes out looking for predators. In researching the 45 species of langurs, I came across some information that was pretty heartbreaking to me, and that's that 9 of the 45 species are listed as critically endangered. 15 of them are listed as endangered. Another 12 are listed as vulnerable, and 2 are listed as near threatened, with the remaining number being either data deficient, we don't know enough, or 1 is listed as least concerned. So that means out of all those 45, pretty much all of them are endangered. Some of them very severely so. In that region of the world, the population of humans is huge. Places like India, places like China, countries like Indonesia, Bangladesh, all have very large human populations. And when human populations grow so large, they need a lot of food to feed all those people. And the cities expand, the farmlands expand, the other needs for resources like wood expand, and the forest and the wild places tend to suffer quite a bit. Habitat loss is therefore their largest concern. Many of the forests that they rely on, the trees they need to eat, but also to sleep in at night to be safe from predators, are kind of being destroyed for the human needs. Also, that sometimes creates habitat fragmentation, places where the species is divided into little groups where they quickly become all related to each other, and this group of monkeys can't get to this group of monkeys over here to breed with them, and so they start to be very isolated populations, and they can't get to each other because there's a big highway or a city or something built in between them. The next huge issue for a lot of langurs is hunting. Now, in some areas, they're hunted and eaten by people. Those people are usually very subsistent living, very poor, don't have a lot of means to find good food, and they'll kind of eat whatever they can find. But with most of the hunting for langurs, it's not to be eaten. It is for something called traditional medicine. It's big in a lot of Asian cultures and communities, and it is a belief that different body parts of different animals can heal people of different sicknesses, illnesses, diseases, ailments. And there's a lot of interesting research that has been done into that with very, very little actual outcome that it does any good. But these are traditions that cultures have perpetuated for thousands of years, and they say, oh, you have a headache, you need to eat this monkey paw. Oh, you have an upset stomach, you need to drink this seahorse tea. Oh, you have cancer, you need to grind down a rhino horn and drink the tea. And this has been a huge problem in the last several hundred years, as many species that are relied upon for traditional medicine have been hunted to the brink of extinction. Things like tigers, rhinos, and now langurs. Particularly, several species of langurs are on the critically endangered list because their connection to the traditional Asian markets. And that has been a big problem with many of their populations. Their other big threat is conflict with humans, as the monkeys have been pushed kind of to ideal habitat. They sometimes retaliate by coming into the crop fields and stealing food, and then the people get mad because the monkeys stealing all their food and fight back and either shoot or trap the monkeys, and that is often a big problem. Our special shout out today is for one of those critically endangered species of monkeys. They are called the cat Ba Langur Conservation Project. They work specifically on one island off the coast of Vietnam. It's part of Vietnam, and it's called Cat Ba Island. It's in northern Vietnam, right where Vietnam bumps up against China, near the city of Haiphong. The Cat Ba Langurs are estimated to be less than 100 individuals, and they have been under 100 individuals for about 25 years. So their population has been a big problem for a long time. The island that they live on is the only place where this species of monkeys lives, and about 2/3 of the island is a national park. Now that all sounds good and fine, except the laws to protect the monkeys in the national park have not been enforced very well until recently. But that's where our shout out, our special Cat Ba Langur Conservation Project comes into play. They were established in 2000 and 2001 with supports from two different zoos in Europe, one in Germany, or I guess both in Germany. Both in Germany, two zoos got together and said, hey, let's try to help this monkey out. And they have provided funding and training and management tools to help local people enforce those laws and to limit things like poaching, hunting, and transfer of disease from humans to the langurs who come to visit the national park. Because monkeys are very closely related to humans as primate species, any disease that we have, we can give to them. Any disease they have, they can usually give back to people. And as people visit in many places in Asia, they think it's cute to take a photo with a monkey or feed a monkey, but you don't really realize the risk that you are causing to both your own health and their health, in that you could be transferring diseases back and forth. And say you meet some monkeys over at this temple site and you take some photos and you leave some food for them, but you touch something that they touched and those monkeys maybe have a disease, you may then carry that disease, not even knowing you have it, to a national park where you give it to some other monkeys that could be very endangered. And that is the case that has happened with these monkeys in Cat Ba Island in Vietnam. Disease that has been transferred from other monkey groups has become a huge problem, as well as the poaching that existed up until about 5 years ago. With the Cat Ba Langur Conservation Project, they have done some really great work, and I'll be sharing some of their information on the Facebook page later today. As always, I like to talk a little bit about my experience with the species I talk about on Critter Chat. And during my early days at the Los Angeles Zoo, when I was training to be a zookeeper, I did work a bit with the Francois Langurs that we had there at the LA Zoo, which is the third picture that I posted earlier today on the Facebook and Instagram. That is a little baby monkey, the orange one, with its black parent. And Francois Langurs are listed as endangered. They also come from parts of Vietnam, but further inland, not on the coast, and a larger area in China. Francois Langurs are endangered also because of that traditional Asian medicine that I talked about earlier. Specifically, they make something called black ape wine. Yeah, I don't know the details of how they make that, but they do kill monkeys to make some sort of drink that people drink for a alleged medicinal value, and they think that that's an okay thing. It has no medicinal value. I highly encourage you that if you are considering traditional Asian medicine, to read some actual scientific research as to its effects and see if it actually does any good. If you find something that works, then that is your prerogative. But I would highly recommend that you don't partake in traditional Asian medicines, as mostly they just wipe out endangered species. With Francois Langurs, though, at the LA Zoo, it was really cool to work with them. We had a breeding population. We had a male. I believe they have 3 adult females. They had several babies during my time in the LA Zoo. Although I did not work with them closely, I was never their actual keeper. I did get to work with them as I was training to be a zookeeper. My zookeeper experience didn't involve as many monkeys or other primates as much. But super cool monkeys. It was really cool to see them alloparent. When the babies got scared, any of the adults would hold them close and reassure them. And it was super cool to see that. I'll be sharing some information from the LA Zoo about the Francois Langurs that they have had over the years there. Super cool monkeys, and it's really cool to see the babies that are born bright orange. Then about 4 or 5 months of age, that orange starts to fade, and then new hair comes in, and it's black, and they start to look like the adults more and more. I hope you've enjoyed what I've shared with you today about Langur monkeys. I'll be sharing more information about them on the Facebook profile later today, so watch for that. As always, feel free to like, share, follow, and subscribe to any of my content across Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, where all of the Critter Chats live. You can go watch any of the other episodes that you missed, and also on my website at jeremythezoonerd.com. Until tomorrow, be happy, be healthy, be safe. Bye.